Hello, good evening. Hi, Savannah. How are
Hi,
you?
Carson.
And hi, Facebook fans and conservation voters. Today, Savannah Roach and I are going to be talking about any vote by mail questions you have and some that we have gotten from our members and the voters that we've been reaching out to these past couple months. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Carson Mitchell. I'm FCV's communications manager. And Savannah, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm FCV's digital organizer. I've been here for a few months and I am loving it. We've been working a lot on this election and making sure everyone has as much resources as possible to vote by mail and know how to properly fill out and return their ballot and all the things. So I'm excited to get into the myth busting tonight.
Yes, yes, and that's exactly what this little Facebook Live is for. So we're going to be taking the hard questions. We're going to be taking the hairy questions. So really, if you're watching at home and you have any burning question, doesn't matter how basic or how convoluted, type it in the chat and we will answer it. So Savannah, I voted by mail.
Oh, you got a button? Nice. I have a sticker.
Yeah, so I adapted my sticker to button because all year long, right? I just let everyone know I voted by mail. So let's start with some like rudimentary stuff. What is vote by mail? How does it work? And why vote by mail this election?
Okay, well, to start with what it is, voting by mail is just as the name sounds, casting your ballot by mail. And it's really easy to do it in three simple steps. You request your ballot. You can either have a standing request with with your supervisor of elections, or you can put in a brand new request. It is strongly recommended that you do that for wherever you currently live or where you'll be living closest to the election. So for example, I moved this year. So I waited until I moved to put in my request so that the ballot got sent to the right place. So you want to request it to your supervisor, from your supervisor of elections, nowhere else. No one else can send you a ballot but your supervisor of elections. And when you get you just get the ballot mailed to you and a return envelope. You fill it out, you put it in the secrecy sleeve, put it back in your envelope, sign the back, and you ship it off in the mail. And it goes right back to your supervisor of elections. It really could not be easier. That's how I voted this year. And it's how I voted the very first time I voted because I came to college and I was far away from where I was registered. So there we go, voting by mail. It's really easy. And what I loved about it too was that you don't need to leave your home. You can really just pop that thing in the mailbox, or if you want, you can take it to the post office. And so that brings us to why vote by mail. This year, with self-isolation and quarantining to try to keep all of us as healthy as possible and prevent the spread of COVID, voting by mail became the ideal option. It's like, why not vote by mail? Because now you have no excuse to not vote because you can vote from the comfort of your home. All you have to do is drop it in the mailbox and you don't have to encounter long lines, lots of people. I personally don't even like lines at the grocery store. So keep it as low contact as possible. So that's what vote by mail is and why we've been pushing it so hard this year.
Yes, and one reason I love vote by mail too is, like you said, you can do it at home, like slippers on, vote by mail out, and you are voting, and you are comfy in your jammies, watching your favorite show. It's really democratic.
And it gives you like the added bonus of being able to just take as long as you want to look over the candidates and the ballot measures and just take your time. I got my ballot and I returned it about 3 days later because I wanted to take my time and look up everyone and be as informed of a voter as possible, which we all should try to be. And so I feel like that's an added bonus of voting by mail. You can just sit at home at your desk with your laptop, Googling everybody and every ballot measure until you're comfortable with who you're voting for. There's no pressure of, okay, I need to know exactly what to do. Like I need to get in and out. No, you in your home.
Right. You're not going to be like, I will admit, like in elections in years past where I didn't know like judges or whatever. I'd be like, oh, that name sounds cool, bubble. So you don't have to do that, right? Or any reason like their name starts with C, just like mine. You don't have to be that kind of voter, or you can at least like take a little time. So for me personally, I had my ballot out, and we have a Leon County environmental forum. So I was ready to watch the candidates and choose from there, and that's just the beauty of vote by mail.
Yeah, it's so helpful, and it's such a convenience. Like a lot of other countries don't have that, and so it's like voting can't get more convenient than voting by mail. We all love delivery for food and other goods and services, so why not get your ballot delivered too?
Yeah, Instaballot. That's just what it is.
That's how much you market it. Instaballot.
Instaballot rebrand.
Water. It's a joke.
Yeah, and in Florida, like you don't need an excuse. Like if you want to vote by mail, you get to. You just have to request it.
Yeah, good point. You just have to request it. And you even have the option to check a box on the form to indicate that you want to vote by mail for future elections. So that way, as long as you're at the same address, the next election that rolls around, your SOE will send you a ballot without you having to put in a new request, which is pretty damn convenient if you ask me.
Yes. Long-term voting plan.
You don't need to fill out a form like, well, I'm going to be out of the country or out of state. No, they don't want to know. They're not going to ask you why you want to vote by mail. Just sign up, just request the ballot, and they're like, here you go. Registered voter, valid registration. There you go. That's all you need.
Instaballot. We love it. So, Savannah, you mentioned something, supervisor of elections. For all of us not in election world, can you tell us what that is and who they are, what they do?
Right. So supervisor of elections is the elected official for your county whose job it is to oversee all elections that happen within their jurisdiction. So if you live, for example, I live in Leon County, the supervisor of elections would be the first point of contact when I have any question or about voting or need to change my address to vote, update registration. Any kind of official work that needs to be done around voting goes to your supervisor of elections. Every county has one. Every single county has one. It is literally required. They are elected. It is their job to make sure elections go smoothly and to protect the security and the integrity of elections. And they're there to help, and so we should really go to them because they have all the knowledge for everything that we could possibly need. That's why so much of the messaging that I do, that I build into our voter outreach campaigns, we're directing people to where they can find the information for their supervisor of election, because that's going to be the best source of information for everyone, because sometimes things vary by county. So the best person to give them the information is their county's supervisor of elections. So they literally supervise all the elections that happen in that county. Every county has one, and you should find out how to contact yours.
Awesome. And so it kind of sounds like they're kind of like the customer service of elections. The door's always open. Phone line is always an option. Email them. They're there for you, there to help you vote. And I guess this is a good time for us to talk about our voter tool, because you can connect like to your supervisor of elections website through there, right?
Yep, absolutely. Like I mentioned, FCV, like we're doing our best to make these resources available, but we are not the government official in charge of elections. That is not our area of expertise, but we want to be able to facilitate people to get to the information that they need and the people who can help them the best, which would be a supervisor of elections. So if you go to FCV's Make a Plan to Vote tool, flvoterinfo.org, the information the site will push you towards your county's supervisor of elections page.
Awesome. So I'm looking at the comments here. Joanna says that she has voted by mail. Congrats, Joanna. Thank you so much for voting by mail. And, you can drop it off at the Supervisor of Elections office. So that's just one of the many things that your SOE does. So you can mail it even as far away as Boston, and you'll be counted in Florida. That's just
Yes, that's so cool. And also, you don't need to wait till early voting begins in your county to drop off your ballot. You can go drop it off at your SOE office. I know, like, talking to voters, a lot of people were waiting for early voting to begin before physically dropping off their ballot. And you don't need to do that. You can go tomorrow and go to your SOE's office. They have a drop box there that is open and staffed. And just to reiterate from that comment that her son mailed in his ballot from Boston University, like, that's such an added bonus of voting by mail. You're off to college, you can still vote in your home area.
Mm-hmm. You're still invested in your community, even if you're, far away.
Yep, exactly.
I love that. So you mentioned early voting. Let's talk about early voting, Savannah. So that started yesterday. Cool.
For most of Florida, but not all of Florida. It's a little bit tricky, with early voting, as it is an added convenience. There are days that counties are required to open early voting locations, but then there are also some optional days. And October 19th, which was yesterday, was one of those optional days. So luckily for most Floridians, lots of counties started their early voting yesterday. However, that's not the case across the board. So some counties begin theirs on Thursday, but you can count on every county in Florida having early voting started by this Saturday. That Saturday, October 24th, is a required early voting day. So you can count on your county having early voting open by this Saturday. And you can go to flvoterinfo.org to find early voting locations and open hours nearest to you. And we also want to reiterate that you can vote at any early voting location within your county. You don't need to go to your precinct or wherever you're assigned, the precinct you're assigned to for election day. You can go to any early voting location in your county that you're registered in. As long as it's in that county, you're good to go.
Awesome. Okay. And you mentioned the 24th. I think, according to my calendar, that's also the last day to request your ballot.
That's right. A lot is happening on the 24th. It's the last day to request your vote by mail ballot. So if you want to get your ballot, so folks, you got to put that request in now. You have until midnight on the 24th.
Okay, that's good to know. So October 24th. You either need to be requesting your ballot or dropping your ballot off at an early voting location. That's the day. Put it in your calendar. Make a day of it. Go vote. It's lots of fun.
It's a very important day.
Yes, indeed. So back to early voting. I still have some questions, Savannah. So like you said, starts on the 24th. But if I already requested my ballot, can I... why does early voting matter if you're voting by mail?
Well, your options are wider. Requesting a vote by mail ballot is supposed to give you the added convenience and ability to vote from home, but you're not limited to it. Getting your ballot is kind of like voting insurance. It makes sure that for whatever reason that you don't want to leave your house, you can still vote. But if you have your ballot and you haven't filled it out, you haven't mailed it back, it's still just sitting on your desk, you can definitely take it with you to an early voting location and turn it in. Some counties may not require you to turn it in, but some counties do. So you're better off carrying it than not carrying it. So turn in your vote by mail ballot and vote early there. Or if you've already filled out the ballot but not mailed it back, you can take that ballot with you down to an early voting location and drop it into a drop box, because every early voting location has a drop box that is staffed by a poll worker there to make sure that nothing gets tampered with, so they are safe. And also they can verify your signature on spot to make sure that you have a signature on the back of the envelope, because that is the leading cause of ballot rejections in Florida. not having a signature. So to reiterate, if you have your vote by mail ballot, you can absolutely go to early voting still, either turn in your blank ballot and then vote one on site, or drop off your filled ballot into one of the drop boxes.
Great. And is that similar for day of, like election day too? What does it look like to vote by mail on election day?
I'm glad you asked, because it's a little bit different. If you have a filled out ballot and you want to turn it in on election day, you cannot turn it in at your precinct. If you take it to your precinct, you will have to surrender the ballot, and they will give you a regular ballot to fill out right there, as if you were just voting normally on election day. However, if you've already filled out your ballot, there's no reason for you to go and stand in a line to vote again on election day. You can take it to your supervisor of elections and turn in your ballot there.
Great. So then that way you avoid the lines. You don't have to sit outside in the heat. I've seen on Twitter this week, like folks having their cooler and their chair and, waiting the long haul to really do this important thing, which is to vote. But if you have your early voting ballot, you just drop it and go. It's so efficient. You did.
Yeah. But if you do have a ballot, we just want to encourage everyone to turn it in as soon as possible. Especially if you're returning it by mail, put that thing in the mail today, this week. Mail it back this week, because you want to give the Postal Service enough time to deliver it to your supervisor of elections, and give your supervisor of elections enough time to verify your ballot. So turn that thing in.
Yeah. And I think it's required 7 days before the election, or as long as the ballot gets to SOE by 7 o'clock on election day, then it will be counted.
Right. Your SOE must receive your ballot by 7 p.m. on election day for it to be counted. If you miss that 7 p.m. window, that ballot's not going to get counted, unfortunately. And we don't want that. We want everyone to count. And so that's why they strongly recommend mailing it no less than 7 days before the election. Again, to give the Postal Service enough time to deliver it. I mean, it's only going to be, especially if it's going to be mailed in county, that should be fine. But if, for instance, you are voting in Florida, so you're registered in Florida, but right now you are going to college in Minnesota, mail that thing back now. Don't wait till 7 days before the election. You want to get it in as soon as possible, so that you have the added bonus of being relaxed on election day, and you can track it online and know your vote's been counted.
Yes, you sign, seal, deliver, and then track that thing. Yes. So let's talk about tracking real quick before we jump into kind of like the nitty-gritty questions that we have prepared here. So every county has tracking, right? Every county
in Florida has tracking.
Okay. And you just you can go through FC Voters tool, and will take you right to your SOE. So you put your county in, takes you to your SOE, and then like what should we be looking for then? Like you go to your ballot information, right? I'm trying to remember our steps.
Yeah. So when you go to flvoterinfo.org/check or look up, to get to the tracking tool, it will require you to put in your name and your date of birth. And so that website is powered by the state of Florida's Department of State's Division of Elections. So this is available statewide, no matter which county anyone lives in. And so you'll be required to put in your first and last name as well as your date of birth. And then when you go to the next page, it will give you all of your voting information. All of your registration information, which party you're registered with, if any, your date of birth, the date you've been registered, all that jazz. And then at the bottom, there will be a link for you to access your ballot information. And then when you click that link, now it gets to the tracking page. It's a little hidden, but it's really important to click the link at the bottom, so it takes you to the actual tracking page. And once you're there, what you want to look for is one of four things. It will say sent, received, No, sorry. The first one is requested, so that they received your request. Sent, meaning that a ballot was mailed to you. And then received would indicate that your SOE has received your ballot once you've returned it.
Okay.
However, being received doesn't mean that it's been counted. So that's the fourth step in the tracking. It will tell you whether or not your ballot's been counted. If it hasn't been counted yet, that means they're probably validating your ballot, making sure it has a signature, the signature matches, everything was filled out correctly. You know, this is a ballot of a person who is living and is registered to vote. You know, all the things that people are worried about, they're verifying that. There's a lot of security already built into it. So your ballot being received doesn't mean it's been counted. So want to look for those markers to see received and counted. If after 5 days that you've mailed it, if you've mailed it and 5 days have passed and the arrow that says received hasn't been populated yet, hasn't been turned blue, you'll want to give your supervisor of elections a call to figure out what the next steps would be. And if they have received it, but 5 days have passed and it hasn't been counted yet, there's a possibility that there may be an issue with your ballot, in which case your supervisor of elections will have someone contact you to try to cure or correct whatever that error might be. And so that's why it's super important to put up-to-date contact information on the back of your ballot. I know, like, here in the US, we all get spam calls and robocalls, so we don't like putting our phone number down. But when dealing with voting, it's really important for them to be able to reach you as quickly as possible. You know, you don't want that, like, they will call you. If they don't have a number, they'll email you. If they don't have an email, they'll send you a letter at whichever address. And we can guess which of those things take the longest. So you want them to be able to reach you as quickly as possible. So put your real phone number down, or at least an email address that you actually check, not one that you haven't checked since you were 15.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you, Savannah. So let's, you know, there's been a lot of misinformation about vote by mail. You know, whether it comes from, you know, national leaders or even down the line here, neighbor to neighbor. Even if it's well-intentioned, sometimes we kind of spread things that aren't true. So I wanted to, and you know, we've been talking about this with our members and our fellow conservation voters. So I put in some questions that they asked. So here comes the first one. What if the post office worker hates VBM for whatever reason, or you know, wants to commit fraudulent activity? What if they do that and hold your ballot? What does that mean for voters? And is that in your opinion something we should worry about?
In my opinion, it's not something that we should really worry about, but I will not invalidate the fact that there are ill-intentioned persons out there, you know. So while that is not such a huge concern, it could definitely happen. And if that were to happen, if you requested your ballot and a week has passed and you have not gotten anything, again, call your SOE. If you have any kind of doubts, call your supervisor of elections, because one way to bypass that is by picking up a ballot at your SOE office. So I'm pretty sure it's illegal for the post to withhold your ballot, but if anyone were to try, your best bet is to go to your SOE office and tell them that you have not received your ballot, and they can give you a new one. When in doubt, contact your SOE.
Yeah, and I'm sure they've heard every possible crazy thing that's ever happened to a ballot, and they know exactly what to do about it.
Exactly, they're prepared. That their job is to handle that. They know what to do. You should be able to trust your SOE. So when in doubt, call them.
And we live in Florida, so that means that the sky could open and all of heaven rain down at any given moment. So what if your ballot is damaged on the way to the post office? Like, for example, you have a leaky mailbox and it gets damaged to the point where it's not readable, or even just minimally damaged. What do we do?
If you are aware that it's been damaged, like if it gets wet in your hand and the ink is running and nothing can be read, go to your SOE and ask for a new one. But also, if you've already put it in the mailbox and you've left, you've gone along your way, you've voted, nothing, your job is done. And by the time the SOE receives your ballot, it is wet and unreadable, they'll contact you. You know, that will create an error that they won't, if they can't read your ballot, if the machine can't read it, they'll contact you to be able to get that fixed. But the best case and the best form of action there is if you have it and you know this is not readable, go to your SOE.
Okay. Yeah, and I think something worth noting here is like SOE doesn't just like I wash my hands of it, my job's done here. They want to help you vote. So
Exactly.
that's what they're going to do. They're going to call you. They're going to go to the ends of the earth. They're going to walk to your house. Not really, but they're going to do everything they can.
They'll call you.
Ma'am, did you vote by mail?
Yeah, if there's any kind of problem with your ballot, you can count on someone from your supervisor of elections office to give you a call so that it can be fixed. Because, I mean, it doesn't look good on them if a ton of ballots are getting rejected for no rhyme or reason. So they have the responsibility to get those things corrected. So, like receiving ballots with no signature on the back, they're going to call you so that you can get that fixed. You know,
Yeah. Speaking of signature, so I imagine that I'm like a lot of people. I have my long, elegant, full name signature, and then I have my quick
the chicken scratch signature.
Yes, my credit card at Target signature. So how do I know which one to use?
Use the signature that is on your government issued ID that you use when you're voting. When you register to vote, you would have had to provide any amount of identification. So whether you provided your driver's license, your ID card, your passport, you have to provide a government issued ID number to your supervisor of elections. Whatever form of ID you provided to them, you should try to get your signature to match that signature that's on that ID. So if you use your driver's license, try to get your signature to match what it looks like on your driver's license, because that's what they'll have on file for you. And when they receive the ballot, they're going to match the signature with what they have on file. And if it doesn't match, then it starts to question the validity of the ballot, and so they will give you a call to get it fixed. If it's so, how do you know your signature is right? If you don't get a call, if you check it online and it says counted, I mean, it could be a little bit nerve-wracking, like, oh no, my signature changed over the last 2 years, but try your best to get it to look like what it looks like on your ID. And worst case scenario, if it doesn't match, they'll give you a call to get it fixed. For example, when I voted my vote by mail ballot, I was like, okay, I'm telling people to sign to like get the signature to match. I gotta do this right. And a couple of weeks later, I check online, I see that it was received and counted. I know I'm good, So if you check it and it says counted, that's how you know your signature's right. If it's not right, they will let you know.
Yes, and this is not the time to like reinvent your signature. It might help to practice it a couple times if you're really, really concerned. If you usually dot your T's and cross your I's, do that. Or
have your ID out.
Oh, another
next to the ballot when you're signing it, because like you may not have gotten your driver's license or your passport updated in like 2 or 3 years, So just like have your ID out so that you can reference your own ID and be okay, that's how I curved my signature 2 years ago,
Right. Middle initial, no middle initial.
Signature has changed a lot. It's a bit too late to do this for this election, but for following elections, just update your registration. If it's been 5 years and your handwriting does not look the same, update your registration.
Okay. So this is the last question I have, and I think it's super relevant. I've seen this happening on Twitter. I think it happened a little bit in Miami-Dade. Can you explain this strange phenomenon of receiving your return envelope already sealed?
Yeah, so we've been getting quite a few complaints from members and voters that the return envelope that comes with your ballot, they've received it already sealed. And the most probable cause for this that we've been hearing is the humidity in Florida and the ballots sitting in the humid mailboxes and the glue fusing and sealing. And so, that's really unfortunate and frustrating. There are two ways to handle this. One of which I learned from an SOE website today. You can take a letter opener or a scissors and you can open it along the top and then put your ballot inside and then close it with tape. Sealing it with tape will not invalidate your ballot. It's just the envelope that holds it. It's sealed with tape. It'll be fine. Put 2 or 3 layers of tape to make sure nothing happens. But sealing it with tape rather than like just sealing it with the glue won't invalidate the ballot. So if you do receive your return ballot and it's already sealed, just get yourself a letter opener or scissors and slice open the top so that you can stuff your ballot in and then seal it with some tape. The other thing you can do is you can just take the ballot, wrap it in the secrecy sleeve that comes with it, and just take it in and return it in person at an early voting site or at a ballot drop box at your SOE.
But probably not drop off the thing in the early voting drop box
without they can give you a new envelope.
Oh, okay, great. And that's when you would sign it and proceed.
Well, you can still much. Yeah, exactly. Because you can't just sign the ballot itself. You're signing the envelope. You're signing the return envelope. So that's when they would either give you a new envelope that you can sign, or you can submit it directly to your SOE there. Great. So there's a lot of ways around that. I know it's really frustrating for a lot of people. Like, it's definitely going to be frustrating, but you can slice open the top, put that ballot in, tape it, and you're good to go. Or you can just take the ballot into your SOE office.
Great, great. So I want to give our audience just a couple more seconds to ask their really complicated questions. But Savannah, what is like the most interesting thing you've learned about vote by mail? Or like what's a fun fact that you'd like to share with us?
Interesting question. I would say that it's the most interesting thing is not necessarily a fun fact, but I definitely think that it looks a little different in every county. And I've learned that Florida is very fortunate to have a system that does not require an excuse. Prior to getting involved in this work, I didn't know that vote by mail was not available across the entire country. Early voting is not even available across the entire country, which is just bananas to me. But what I've learned is, Florida is really fortunate that we have a system that is trying to make voting more accessible, and you can request your ballots so easily. It's so easy to request it. But I've also learned, and this is not a fun fact, but it is interesting because it fuels this work. I've learned that a lot of people in Florida have not had this said to them, have not had these resources made easily available to them. Every supervisor of elections is, their job is to educate their constituents in that county about their voting resources. However, like everyone's not created equal, just like every school's website would be different. Every supervisor of elections has a different website, and the package of instructions that come with your ballot, it'll look different in every county. And so sometimes people need things said to them in a different way from a different medium. The messenger is really important. And so we've encountered that a lot of voters were not aware that they didn't need an excuse to vote by mail. They weren't aware they can put in the request online. And they also weren't aware that they can track their ballot. We've realized that making voters aware of the fact that they can track whether their ballot has been received and counted creates a higher level of trust in the vote by mail system.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's the fun fact that I picked up, just learning about where everyone's at in voting education and remembering to gracefully educate, because it's not their fault. It's not any of our fault. Like, I didn't know a lot of this stuff prior to taking on this job and diving deep into it. But so that's the whole point. We want to make this information easily available so that you don't have to be doing this for your job to know these things.
Right. And you mentioned the messenger. We're lucky that our messenger is so cool and fun and nice and interesting. So thanks, Savannah. So while we're here, tell us how people at home can get involved. So you've already voted, tracked your ballot, check, check, check. Now what? We have 14 days left until the election.
Yeah, we have 14 days left. We are down to the wire. If you've already voted, we would love to have you help us encourage other folks to vote and share these resources with them. It is so important that we help each other exercise our right to vote, because not everyone has the exact same resources available. And so we're talking to voters all across the board, people that we don't know and people that we do know. So anyone watching, if you're interested in texting or calling voters, sign up for our upcoming events. But if you only want to talk to your personal network, we have a volunteer opportunity for that too. This Saturday, I'll be hosting a workshop just for about 1 hour to teach folks how to empower their own networks by talking about the election and also the different issues that FCB focuses on, and mobilizing voters around those issues, because as we said, the messenger is really important. And our friends and family are more likely to listen to us than they are to like a stranger that's calling out of the blue. So we're doing our best efforts to call and text people, but I can't do it all by myself. So that's where volunteers come in. Volunteers are super valuable, and I love learning from my volunteers. They've been a driving force in this. I literally could not do anything without them.
So, love them.
We're very grateful for our volunteers at FCB, and we encourage everyone watching, you've done your part by voting. Now, take it an extra step further and help FCB. You can sign up for our phone bank. That's tomorrow at 6, or get started with text banking, which is Thursday at 6. So, yeah. And if you can't make it to either of those times, just, fill out our volunteer sign-up form, and I will do my best to reach out to you and find something that works for your schedule, because we really want to prioritize meeting our volunteers where they're at. So everyone can have a part to play in this.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So we don't have any more questions. Trying to think if there's anything that we didn't uncover, but we can certainly do another one of these, or, we've been putting out a lot of blog posts from Savannah, just really breaking down this kind of complicated issue. But like you said, Savannah, it is such, this is such a people-based thing. Like, now is the time that we all come together. COVID has really isolated us for our own safety, or, so finding ways to continue to connect with people while maintaining public health is really important. And especially during this election. And there's plenty of creative ways to do it. Whether you and your friends organize a little Zoom party where you text your friends and play games together. There's so many ways to really make a difference, and every person does make a difference.
Every person makes a difference. Yeah. Your vote counts.
Love it. Yeah. So I think that wraps it up for us tonight. Yes, I will post links to everything we talked about. And if any of you have questions, please don't hesitate to type them here in the chat. We'll be revisiting this chat throughout the week. Reach out to Savannah at gotv@fcvoters.org with any questions, any under the sun. Savannah will answer it.
And if I don't know, I'll look up the resource for you and point you in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Savannah. I really enjoyed spending my time.
Absolutely. Thank you for this discussion.
Of course. Happy voting, y'all.